The following podcast is brought to you on behalf of the Saracen Supporters Association and is not an official product of Saracens Limited. Views expressed on the Fezcast are those of the individuals and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Saracens Limited, the Saracen Supporters Association, Saracens Mavericks, or any other entity. The Fezcast is designed to be inclusive for the whole Saracens family, however occasional adult content may evade the censoring robots, so discretion is advised. Content provided voluntarily by our guests and contributors are of their own opinion, which may change over time and should not be taken as fact, particularly as the podcast hosts are regularly talking drivel anyway. If you've got some drivel of your own you'd like to share, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Fezcast_SSA. You can search Facebook for the Fezcast, or you can email fezcast.ssa@outlook.com.
It's the Fezcast with Matt Bartlett and Jez Denson, in association with the Saracen Supporters Association.
Well, welcome everybody to the next edition of the Fezcast with me, Jez Denson, and Matt Bartlett. Plenty coming up on the show today, Matt, but first of all, how are you? You okay?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I've got over COVID, but I've given it to you through a screen.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, me and Sharon have both had it, and I've still got it, which is a pain in the backside because I can't run at the moment. And 2 weeks' time, I'm running Brighton Marathon. So, yeah, everything up in the air there. But hey ho, plenty of things going on. We've got a great show up ahead of us. We've invited along one of the guys from the Bristol Bears, Bears at the Gate podcast to join us and to chat about Six Nations, Women's Six Nations, but also obviously the Showdown at the Spurs Stadium. Quick one, looks good, great grounds. Had a good day yesterday, Matt?
Well, yeah, it's a fantastic ground. I know that probably pains you to say as a West Ham fan, but it's a really fantastic place, and I'm glad we've teamed up with them to have our showdown matches there. Wasn't a complete sellout, obviously, but there was still enough there to create a good atmosphere, and Bristol were massively contributing to that. And it was also, I probably played a good game of Premiership Rugby bingo. I think there was a shirt from most clubs. So there was a lot of fans of Leicester and London Irish and Wasps all coming along to support Saracens, maybe? I don't know. But
well, we'll discuss that in part 3. In part 1, we're going to talk about the Six Nations and the Women's Six Nations that kicked off. And in part 2, we've got an interview that I did on Friday prior to the showdown with Don Morris, which was fabulous. So he did it from a changing room at the training ground. The light kept on going off. There was always the threat that somebody might have been playing a joke on him at some point. But no, that was a fun, fascinating little chat with Don. We covered rumours about him being looked at by other clubs, his preferred position as inside or outside centre, and lots of other things besides. Well, welcome to the Fezcast. Our counterpart at the Bears at the Gate podcast from Bristol Rugby, Pete Brearley's joined us. Welcome, Pete, to the Fezcast. This is a reciprocal journey, as it were. I've appeared on your podcast, and great that you could come on after the showdown on the weekend and join us. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for inviting me on. I should say it's Bears Beyond the Gate, but yeah, just to get that right.
Yeah, fair dues. Sorry, well, you know.
Yeah, but no, just understandable. Yeah, really good. Thanks. Yeah, made the trip to London yesterday, and I've managed to get over the result now. So raring to go to have a chat with you.
Brilliant, excellent. Well, we're going to talk about we're going to split us down into 2 parts, as we said in our introduction, and we're going to sandwich a interview I did with Don Morris. So we'll talk about the game yesterday in our second part of this interview. But first up, just wanted to recap on the Six Nations, in particular, have a chat about Saracens and Bristol players who are impressed. And perhaps I might have a little rant about Eddie Jones, because that's what I tend to do, and it'll be a little while before I get that chance to do that. But yeah, I suppose first things first, to say Harry Randall in an England shirt, I think he did very, very well, particularly in the Ireland game, where he played what was in front of him after Charlie Hills got sent off. Worked well with Marcus Smith. And again, against France, I thought he showed some really good pace and speed at the breakdown. That then obviously was slowed immediately down to a 2.5 week wait at the breakdown for Ben Youngs. But you've got to be proud with how Harry Randall stepped up this year, surely.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we were pretty relieved that he didn't come back injured from England. So that was a start, because he had a bit of a stuttering start last season where he got picked for the squad and then got injured and didn't make an appearance. Got a couple in the summer. Yeah, I mean, putting Bristol aside, I think any England fan would have been quite encouraged by seeing him play. And in fact, that style of scrum half is probably what a lot of fans have been hoping for a while. And if it's not Harry Randall, it could be Rafi Quirk or it could be Alex Mitchell or whatever. It happened to be Randall. He's obviously made his mark with the squad. And yeah, I mean, it is amazing to think that he came from Hartbury College. We picked him up from there. Kind of, we couldn't believe how small he was. Nobody really may have really thought that he'd be playing international rugby very soon after, relatively soon after that. And he clearly improved a lot at Bristol. I mean, clearly, the style of play that we've got, suits him as a player. And he's definitely matured both as a kind of person and as a player. And I was I'm really pleased to see him play. And I think you're right. I mean, this is the thing we love about Harry Randall at Bristol is his tempo. And I mean, it seems fairly obvious that if you've got a scrum half with tempo and delivery, then the team is going to do well. So yeah, we were planning, and he came back obviously straight off the England camp, straight into yesterday's game, and played pretty well then as well. So yeah, all good, all thumbs up at Bristol at the moment for Harry.
Well, absolutely. I think, he was very impressive. And for me, he is stakes a claim for the number one choices as scrum half for England now, and should be going forward. And as you say, other names you mentioned there, like Rafi Quirk, should be along with him. I think if you look at scrum halves across the Six Nations, other than Wales, who kind of seem to go back into type, Ali Price at Scotland, Antoine Dupont, Callum Brayley in Italy, and the person I thought who was the best scrum half in the Six Nations, as much as everybody, Dupont got player of the tournament, I thought James and Gibson Park for Ireland was the best 9 out there, and they are all so quick at the breakdown and make a decision before they get there. They know what's on, and they know what they're going to do, and it's not prescriptive. It's playing in front of them. That's great. Now, the other question is, there were a few Saracens players involved in international duty. I think Barrow Itoje, he proved himself to be one of the top players in the world without a shadow of a doubt. I think Jamie George had a great little tournament when he played. Elliot Daly, well, Elliot, isn't he? He gives you what he gives you. Max Malins, I think, has been treated quite badly. And again, Max is somebody that you will have seen a lot of last season. He seems to be being made the fall guy for a few things, in particular the Ireland game, when, unfortunately for him, he ended up marking 3 players for a lot of the game and actually didn't get a lot of score, but he's the fall guy. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, we're a big fan of Max Malins at Bristol. So are the Clifton Coffee Houses, I believe. We still harbour this hope that if he doesn't sign a new deal at Saracens, we'll get him back at some point. But yeah, I mean, I think Malins. Ironically, when we talked about who would we have kept if we, this fantasy, which of the two would we keep between Malins and Earl? To be honest, a lot of people thought Malins. He's just got that silky kind of running style, that elusive running style. But yeah, I agree with you. I 100% agree. I felt it was very unfair that he was made the scapegoat of the Ireland game. It wasn't as if he actually got given much service to do much with it. And who knows? I mean, he's a young lad. I mean, I'm sure he'll get back in the squad at some point. And he's a proven thoroughbred now. He's not a up and coming player. I think he's made his mark both in the Premiership and hopefully internationally. I'd certainly, as an England fan, want to see him in and around the squad for sure.
I think it's something that Matt, you'll have brought up before as well, isn't it? The fact that going into the next World Cup, there's a look at utility players. And that's why Elliot Daly gets picked a lot. It's because he's got that ability to play 13, 11, 14, 15. Max perhaps falls into that as well, that he has the ability to play 10, wing, fullback. And perhaps that's where his strengths lie, that he's not going to get the hundreds and hundreds of caps on one go, but he may well be a bench player, one of Eddie's finishers.
Yeah,
that phrase, but
yeah, I mean, the squads are getting smaller across the Premiership. So yeah, like you say, the number of players that you can have that can play across 3 or 4 different positions in the backs is what you need. And yeah, Daly, Malins, there's a few of them who are your sort of ideal number 23. And we have got Bristol to thank, really, for turning Max Malins into a decent winger, because he never played there for us until this season. So that is an extra development in his game that is entirely thanks to Bristol. Whoever identified that, because he was very firmly a fullback if he was playing outside of 10. So, yeah, he's definitely come on quite a lot. Ben Earl, I think, at Bristol we kind of knew what Ben Earl was going to offer to Bristol, and he did exactly that. And he's come back and he's doing exactly the same for Saracens. He is a very consistent player. And it is a shame that Eddie's not looking at him yet, but that is one position for England we do tend to be a little bit stacked in, really. So it is what it is. Yeah.
But of course, the other thing, though, and the elephant in the room, perhaps, is for which England players was the Six Nations a good Six Nations? And I read an article, I can't remember whether it was in the Telegraph or the Times, and Martin Bayfield alluded to it as well in the start for the BT Sport coverage. Probably the best result for an England player was Owen Farrell in not playing, particularly with the problems that they had at centre. I think Marcus Smith had a really good Six Nations, only to be let down by shipping the ball out to Henry Slade, who was totally on Eddie Jones's wavelength, just not with the accuracy that Owen Farrell would have given. And it was a very good tournament there's an argument to say it was a very good tournament for Owen Farrell.
I mean, I think Owen Farrell's England future is at 12. I think without a shadow of a doubt, Marcus Smith should be given all the time he needs at 10, really. There are things about Smith's games during the Six Nations that I don't think he was at his creative best necessarily. But I think, yeah, for Farrell to be there outside him at 12, and he is a decent enough crash ball runner as well, Farrell, which is something that we really missed for England. But I don't know, Pete, what's as someone who's not completely biased towards Owen Farrell like we are, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Smith has to be the future, but I think a halfback pairing of a fast scrum half and Smith has to be the future for England. And yeah, I mean, I think the reality is that we haven't got any sort of inside centre succession plan in place. And I mean, it was interesting that Mark Atkinson got into the squads a few times, but never was tried. And to me, it's like, well, I just don't really understand that. Why is he in the radar when he's clearly a specialist inside centre and a specialist 12? He's playing well for his club. Give him a go and see. And it felt a little bit, lightweight in the middle. I mean, I'm a bit of I've got to say, and I'm a little bit Marmite with Owen Farrell as both an England fan and just, not a Saracens fan. But I can't you can't take away from, how the quality he is in terms of, he is 100% focused on what he does, even if it's illegal some of the times. But so I think we did miss that in many ways. It's sometimes that thing like you only know what you're missing when it's not there. And I do think I agree with you. I think potentially that will be our kind of future, as it were, for the World Cup. And hopefully, it will. Let's take away all our negativity about certain things with England. But ultimately, we all want to win the World Cup, don't we? And if it does come off, then fair play to both Owen Farrell and Eddie Jones.
Well, yeah, absolutely, and it'll be interesting to see where England go from here, and where other teams go from here as well. I think certainly Scotland and Wales have got an awful lot of thinking to do. I think Italy, with that win against Wales, have really proven their worth at the top table. And I will have to say, other than Stuart Hogg butchering 2 tries in successive games, I think the biggest cheer was the Italian try for Padovani with Capuzzo's inside-outside run to set it up, which was fabulous. That was the biggest cheer in our house. But yeah, Ireland look like they're going in the right direction, and France are looking pretty impressive. So Northern Hemisphere rugby, I think, on the whole, is looking in good places, really. Speaking of Six Nations, though, obviously Saturday saw the start of the Women's Six Nations. England-Scotland was the first game. We've seen Wales get a good victory. I've seen France get a good victory. But I mean, the one game I did watch was England-Scotland. Did you guys get a chance to see it on your way to the game, or highlights or anything like that? Because there was both Saracens and Bristol players in the England squad who all performed pretty well, I felt.
So I managed to see. I basically watched the whole second half, but without seeing the ball. I was in a pub before the game, and I was sitting with a pillar right down the dead centre of the screen. So the camera obviously followed the ball around, and it was behind a pillar the whole time. So I did see it, and I have seen the highlights. And yeah, very, very clinical performance by an England squad where, you know, we've kind of admitted that there's probably a second and a third team that would beat Scotland with the current disparity in contracts and things. But yeah, it was a decent enough performance, but it's interesting that head coach Simon Middleton actually isn't that happy. Thinks we should have won by more, which possibly fair, to be honest. But did you sort of catch it on your way in, Pete, or?
I've only read the report. Actually, I was going to mention that if you hadn't mentioned it. I quite like the fact that, you know, he kept them on their toes a little bit. You know, you win whatever 57-5, and he's still not happy.
Yeah.
But I think that it's it highlights what you've said, is that there clearly is a bit of a disparity, and of course the England team beat the All Blacks, or whatever, beat the All Blacks women in the autumn. So when you set the standard that high, it's you've got to keep up there, haven't you? So yeah, fair play to him. He sounds like a kind of Pat Lam sort of character.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I mean, I did watch it. I mean, Marley Packer did what Marley Packer does. I mean, the hat tricks from open side is just obscene, really. But you know, there was some really, really good performances, and some really good performances from Scotland. And as much as 57-5 is a shellacking by any, you know, on the scoreboard, Scotland did enough to suggest that they're making steps up, and that, you know, they made England work hard for what they got, which is fine. So that's something to look forward to going forward as well, I think. And yeah, looking forward to the next few games on that one. But no, I think we've done internationals. We've got you on, Pete, to talk about the showdown, which we will do in part 3. But before that, I did an interview with Don Morris in a changing room. I wasn't. I was at home, obviously, but over iPhones and whatever. But we're going to play that in now, and this is a really interesting chat with one of Saracens' rising stars. So we'll come back in a couple of minutes after a word from one of our sponsors with my interview with Don Morris.
This is the Fezcast.
Hi, I'm Alex Lewington, and I'm a Looseheads ambassador.
I'm Sydney Gregson, and I'm a Looseheads ambassador.
Our aim is to tackle the stigma of mental health in rugby and society in general.
The Looseheads mission is to place a mental health lead at every rugby club. Get in touch now to find out more.
You can find us at Looseheads on all social media channels or at looseheads.co.uk.
Take care and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Enjoy the rest of the pod.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, welcome to the Fezcast, one of Saracens' up-and-coming rising stars. I think it's fair to say one of my colleague Matt's favourite players. And but yeah, welcome to the Fezcast, Dom Morris. How you doing, Dom? All good?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Just come off a lovely sunny training day, so can't complain.
Absolutely not. Beautiful weather. So getting ready for some flowing running rugby to be seen, I suppose, next few weeks.
Hopefully, because we've seemed to have most of our games have been pouring down with rain and mega windy, so it'd be nice to have some proper sun out, play some flowing rugby.
Well, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I suppose the last few games they have been a struggle, haven't they? And I mean, playing into that wind at the Stonex, it's for an old forward like me, it's something I would really enjoy. But I mean, obviously, if you want to get on the end of scoring moves and everything, it's not so good.
Yeah, exactly. As a back, you just want it to be as dry as possible and get your hands on the ball and get running. So, yeah, fingers crossed we get some more weather like we've got at the moment and can get some better games in for the end of the season.
Well, absolutely. And starting, I mean, we're recording this on Friday afternoon before the big showdown against the Bears at the Spurs. I nearly said Spuds now. I'm a West Ham fan, you see. So, I mean, I have a problem with Spurs. At the Spurs Stadium, which we'll talk about in a bit. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about yourself. Dom, I mean, you're coming up towards 50 appearances for the Men in Black. I mean, the team's out for tomorrow. Unfortunately, not selected tomorrow, so a rest week for yourself. But then, we'll discuss the team in a bit. There's quite a lot of big names coming back into the team as well. But, last year was an interesting year. There's a lot of players like yourself, and we've spoken to Andy Christie as well on the Fezcast. You were given an opportunity perhaps to stake a claim for your position in the club, and you certainly grasped that opportunity with both hands.
Yeah, as you say, it was a bit of a dark period for the club in terms of getting relegated, obviously. But for players like myself and Andy, as you said, it was a big opportunity to kind of step up, whilst probably some senior players were away or not playing as often. So it was a great opportunity to show to the coaches what we could do in the Sarries kit. And I've been really enjoying myself so far.
Well, excellent. I mean, the other thing as well last year was that there were a big pair of boots in your position that were vacated the previous season, with the Terminator, Brad Barrett, finally hanging up the boots and giving the face a rest. I mean, that's obviously, putting on that number 12 shirt as you did on frequent occasions that Brad so graced for so many appearances. That must have been a big thing for you as well.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, Brad's obviously such a massive legend at this club. He's someone I massively idolised to play like, and he's such a great leader, and he's always led by example. And I think to even be able to play in his position and put on the same show is a massive privilege for me. So I think, it's a massive honour, and it's brilliant.
Well, of course, going back over the years, there's been some great centres that have pulled on the Saracen shirt. I mean, just to add to Brad Barrett, throw in Tim Horan and Philippe Seller, just to name two amazing names that you're now following in the footsteps of. And the centre seems to be a position at the club where there is an awful lot of competition for places. I mean, you got Nick Tompkins returning from Wales duty, and we'll ask you about that. Alex Lazarski's there. You've got Big Duncan Taylor. Lots and lots of competition, but you're holding your own. You're developing along with those guys, and not only up in your game, but forcing those guys to up their game as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's really healthy to have that sort of competition in the club, because as you say, it pushes everyone up, and we work together. And I look up to all the guys at the club, so the likes of Nick Tompkins, Duncan Taylor, Elliot Daly, Alex Lazarski, and also past players. So I had a good relationship with Marcelo Bosch, and also Brad when he was here. So I think it's a great place for us to learn, develop, and push each other on, and it gets the best out of each other, and ultimately for the club and results. So.
Yeah, I mean, now Matt, who would have been joining us but couldn't today, but he was really wanting to ask the question because earlier on in the season there was quite a bit of rumours being around on the various different sites. You often have to take them with a pinch of salt, but there's an element of Irish qualification within your family history and Munster sniffing around. So obviously, one, you've done something right that people are beginning to talk about you in being looked at by other clubs and other organisations. But then you obviously signed a new contract, which was great to see. It was something that we were all very happy to see. I mean, was that ever was it ever a possibility? Or, is Saracens where you want to be, and this is where you feel you're going to develop the best?
Yeah, well, I'll be completely honest with you. There was, I don't know where the article came from. It was absolutely it was completely had nothing to do with it, and I'd actually already committed to the club before it come out. So yeah, honestly, I don't know, some reporter just making a story up, I think. So yeah, I love Sarries. It's my home. It's where I want to play my rugby, and I'm glad to be staying for another couple of years, and just really want to push on and push myself to be the best player I can, and help the club to get in the great place it can be, and I know it already is. So yeah, I'm just really pleased to have re-signed and be staying here.
So where do your ambitions now lie within the game? I mean, you've represented England at age group levels, and you were part of a successful Six Nations under-20 squad, 5 years ago now. So, I mean, obviously, you see other players are being given their opportunity at England's level, or as we've mentioned, Nick Tompkins already, he's moved off to Wales because he was going to get recognition there. I mean, are you just happy at the moment cementing your place at Saracens, making sure that you're going to be the number one centre going forward, or as often as you possibly can be, and then see where it goes from there?
Yeah, I think obviously the first things first is I want to be playing my best rugby and get myself into that starting jersey and playing regularly to get myself in that eye, and then if I can do that, then hopefully in the games to come it catches the eye and I might get an opportunity. But I think first things first, I'm going to focus on giving my best performance and putting my best work out on the pitch so I can get noticed. But yeah, first things first, I want to be playing my best rugby at Sarries and striving to make the best out of the opportunities I get.
Well, absolutely brilliant. Well, I mean, on yourself personally, the other question was, I mentioned the fact that I'm an old forward, although I did have the odd 13 game and played at centre, which, you can see that I was a crash ball centre with very little passing skills. But I mean, you play both 12 and 13. Which do you prefer? I mean, they are actually quite, people say it's centres, but they are quite different in the way that you play each position, aren't they?
Yeah, massively different. They've both got their pros and cons. I mean, 12's obviously probably a bit more in the game in terms of you get a bit more ball and a bit more crash balls and your tackles. But I think 13's a great position to play in when you get a bit of space. And like we say, that sunny weather, you get the ball in space in 13 a lot. And it's a great place to play if you want to really get the ball in your hands and get going. But it's a tough one. I like both, but I'd probably say I prefer 12 just because you get a bit more in the mix, a bit more impacts. But yeah, I like them both. I can't really decide, but I'll probably go with 12 because it's a bit more in it.
Well, it's quite interesting. I did Lawrence Delalio's rugby podcast a couple of weeks ago for his Evening Standard, and he was bemoaning the fact of the lack of English registered centres in the Premiership. I think he said there were only 9 of you that are registered for England, and if the rumours are true again that Alex Lazowski can go off and play for Italy, and why wouldn't you after their recent performance in the Six Nations, which we'll talk about. But I mean, yeah, obviously at some point in the future, your name I think should already be mentioned in there, but and certainly Matt would agree with me, and I think a lot of other people will do that. Obviously, that's dependent on the coach at the moment, and at least said about that, where I do tend to have a few rants about Eddie Jones, and I'm sure at another part of this podcast we will do. But perhaps moving on, and to talk about the returning players. I mean, obviously, there's been quite a few lads have been out with the Six Nations. We look at the squad for Saturday's game against the Bears, and everybody's back. You've got Marrow, you've got Jamie, Nick Ezekwe, you've got Elliot Daly, Nick Tompkins, all returning. Yeah, how does the impact of players coming back from international performances and international games, how does that affect the club?
Oh, it is massive. I think, like, obviously when they've been away in the international break, it's another challenge, and I think as a group we've come together quite well over the period, and we've got some good results and we've made some massive step forwards. But I think when those guys come back, they bring back to training like another gear, another level, which I think as players here we can all look up to, and it drives the standards. And I think with them coming back, it's just a massive positive energy in the club, and buzzing to get out there with everyone back together and hopefully have a good end to the season.
Well, yeah, I mean, and then, I did mention the Italian games. The important one is there been a bit of ribbing going on, particularly in Nick Tompkins, the fact that he was playing in a game where Italy finally got a win after 36 games, and it wasn't down his channel where the decisive try was scored, but I mean, I'm sure there's been a little bit of Mickey taken, has there?
Yeah, I think he's got a little bit of chat in the week, but yeah.
Well, that's good to hear. Well, I mean, the other thing, of course, is the big news this week as well, though, is the return of the skipper. Faz is back. I expect he's been like a caged lion waiting to get on that field. You see him at games. You see him, if you're watching on the telly, he's there. He's prowling around. When he's not playing, do you still feel that Owen Farrell stare and determination and intensity from the stands?
Well, I think he's been around the club. He's been in all the meetings. He's still contributing massively to the club, and I think he's definitely raring to go. And you can tell now that he's back training. He steps up the training another level, and everyone responds to it. But yeah, I think it's going to be massively exciting to have him back, and massive boost for the club. But yeah, it's good to have him back. So.
Excellent. And I suppose, will you be at the ground on Saturday for the game, although you're not in the squad? I presume you do travel just in case of injuries, or? Yeah,
I'll be down there watching. Yeah. So looking forward to it. It'll be a good experience.
Well, yeah, I mean, the second best, I would say the second best stadium in a football stadium in London, obviously after the London Stadium, home of West Ham. But is there a lot of football? I mean, I know Jackson Ray's a West Ham fan, and there's quite a few gooners around the change room. Any Spurs fans in the change rooms? Or, I mean, where's your allegiance lies? I mean, I'm hoping. I mean, you're from Essex originally, aren't you? Sort of Essex area. So
yeah, I'm Essex.
West Ham should be your team.
I'm a Liverpool fan. My mum's a Scouser though, so that's
all right. That's fair. I'll let you off that. But I would really need to have a word with Jackson Ray, because he's obviously not spreading the Hammers word quite well enough around the Saracens. But yeah, no, look, we're looking forward to it. I mean, I'll be watching it on the telly, unfortunately, on the feed, because, as I say, I've had a COVID test, which means I can't go out until Sunday. In time for Mother's Day, so I can at least take a bunch of flowers to my mum. But I mean, obviously looking forward to it and everything. The lads already though, they've had a good week training.
Yeah, been a good week, been a good positive week, as you say. A lot of the boys have come back, so I think it's good spirits in the camp, and I think just looking out to getting out to that end of the season, looking to get like good results, so we build towards hopefully the playoffs, so we can get some momentum and really take hold of the league. But yeah, it's been a great week of training. Yeah, looking forward to hopefully getting a result the weekend.
Well, absolutely. I think this is where it starts now, isn't it? This is you're coming out to Easter. It's the last. You're turning around the final bend on the marathon to get towards that holy grail of a home semi-final, which you're in good position. Who's impressed you out there? Who are Saracens looking over their shoulders at, thinking we need to be wary of, or is it just sole tunnel vision on what you do, get your processes right, be the best what Saracens can be, and let everything else take its course.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of discussions in the week about how no one's really taken hold of the league. It's still up and down. So I think for this end part of the season, we really want to focus on like building those results and taking hold of the league and making it our own, if that makes sense. But yeah, obviously Leicester had a good start to the season, but we obviously had a good result against them not long ago. So yeah, we're just looking forward to the end of the season, getting those results, working on building ourselves so we're in the best place possible for those playoffs.
Oh, excellent, yeah, and hopefully a few players back. As I say, Owen being back's huge, isn't it? But Mako's out for a little while, presumably, but there's plenty of cover there. Dom, I have to say thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been fascinating chatting with you and finding out what's going on. And as I say, we wish you all the best of luck for the rest of the season. We know that you and I know Matt would want to pass it on as well to say how much he's enjoyed how well you've played and stepped up and become an integral part of this squad. We've enjoyed watching your development over the last couple of years. We've been doing the Fezcast, so all power to that. And pass on our best wishes to the lads from the Fezcast, and so we're looking forward to seeing them putting in a good performance against the Bears at the Spurs Stadium.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me on. Really enjoyed the chat, and yeah, fingers crossed to get the result this weekend.
Absolutely. Well, I'll let you get out the changing room now, obviously, unless somebody's probably locked you in now by now, haven't they? Or some jag will be being paid on you or whatever.
I'll find out in a couple of seconds.
Yeah, let you go off and get some R&R done or whatever, and we'll speak to you again sometime in the future, no doubt. All the best, and thank you for your time, Dom.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Appreciate that. Catch you soon.
Thank you very much.
This is the Fezcast.
Hi, this is Jez from the Fezcast to tell you about another one of my passions. I love music, and I have my own radio podcast station, Tarka Blowpig Radio. This is the home of great music presented by myself and my friends, be it folk, rock, indie anthems, progressive music, you name it, we've got it covered. So if you want to listen to some great music, tune in to us at mixcloud.com/Tarka Blowpig.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, that was a fantastic little chat there with Don Morris. Really enjoyed doing that. Lots of good stuff that came out from that about him. And I say, in the first part, we were talking about inside centres for England. He clearly said he wants to play inside centre more than outside centre, though he can play both. And I know he's only played 40 games for Saracens, but if that's a troublesome position, I don't see why Dom shouldn't get a shout. When you look at some of the players that Eddie picks with like 5 league appearances behind their belt or whatever, why not give the lad a chance? But yeah, anyway, we're back here now with part 3 with Pete from the Bristol Fans podcast, and we're going to talk the Showdown now because I couldn't go on Saturday. I sat watching it on BT Sport, so I had the pleasure of Andy Good, Finley disguising his hope that Bristol won, which they very nearly did. But you two both went to the Spurs stadium for the game. First things first, it looked pretty amazing. I did feel sorry for the poor girl who was playing the violin, stood at the top of the stand. I don't know if you spotted that. There's nowhere there. Well, I say that I'm doing a free fall abseil off of the Helter Skelter at the London Stadium in a couple of months' time. But I mean, that was amazing. But the stadium looks amazing. How impressed were you? I mean, we'll start with you, Pete, because I mean, you obviously with Bristol, you play a football stadium and a pretty nice football stadium that Steve Lansdowne's building down there. But how did you find the ground, and what were your impressions?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was amazing. Yeah, I mean, we are proud of our stadium. I mean, it's Ashton Gate, it's Bristol City's ground, but since Steve Lansdale bought the club, brought him over from the Mem in North Bristol 10 or so years ago, you know, he's done everything to kind of integrate the rugby club in there. But yeah, I mean, that Spurs stadium is different gravy. It is. It's a temple. It really is. And I mean, I had a bit of it. I haven't been before because I'm not a Spurs fan, but I've got some friends who are, who kind of buttered me up with it. And yeah, it was, I think we were actually very grateful to be invited to your big party because, you know, because obviously when they planned it in, Bristol were looking like they were going to be champions, I guess, or were the next big thing. And then suddenly we end up 10th in the table. So the showdown was like second against 10th. But I think we had quite a few fans there. I mean, and I think it was a nice kind of narrative, you know, the Bears with their kind of the way that we're trying to develop as a club, come into the big smoke to the London boys. And yeah, I mean, I had the best day, 8:30 train from Bristol, you know, get over to North London, a few pints in that pub that's a urinal. So I think I sent you a picture showing me, wander up, big table service at Big Mac to fill up and then just wander into the stadium and marvel at the bottom filling pints, and then take our seat. And if it couldn't get even better, you say there was a woman dressed up in kind of evening robes playing a violin on the roof. It was extraordinary. So I had a great time, and I've got to say, whatever, you know, even if we'd been, as you rightly say, if using one of your words, if we'd been given a shellacking, I still think we would have enjoyed the day just because the context, the stadium was so good.
Well, I must admit, I mean, on the television, and I mean, you do see it when you've got these new, as you say, cathedrals, that the atmosphere sometimes can be lacking. And I certainly seen it as a West Ham fan, seeing when West Ham moved from the Bowling Ground to the London Stadium. Arsenal, for instance, when they moved into the Emirates, they become these sort of like soulless bowls. And actually, you know, there wasn't full, it wasn't to the rafters, as it were. There were still seats available there, but on the television, the atmosphere seemed absolutely amazing. It was not contrived. It was a whole set of fans getting together behind their teams and really supporting it. I don't know, is that a correct impression I got from the TV?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it was, and I think, you know, the Saracens put on a great show. The start, you know, building it up was great. They had loads of dancing at half time. It was good. The one thing I would say actually was, and I don't really blame anyone for this, but and perhaps it's something to think about in the future, is that I think it would have been even better if somehow there had been a kind of area for just the Bristol fans. I don't know how they could have done that, you know, kind of releasing tickets to Bristol, 5,000 something, and then we would have all bought it that way. Because I think when we had Harlequins, it came to us in the fateful semi-final last summer. They were given kind of a big section of the Lansdowne, and they were unbelievable. Those fans all together, they were singing, and I don't think it had any impact on the result of the game, but it was just a really good atmosphere. And I just think that was something to think about for when clubs like yourselves and Harlequins or whatever do hire out the big stadiums, that maybe that's something to look at, to get the away fans together in one place, and that would just raise the atmosphere. I mean, there were I could hear quite a lot of Bristols around, and that was heartening. But yeah, I mean, that was the only thing I'd say, is that, you know, you could even enhance it even more by just thinking about a little bit of a bit of zoning, maybe.
I think that'd probably prove that you make more noise than us. So yeah.
I mean,
maybe that's the reason.
The other way is you could always do it the way that Bath do and just shove you down in the most inhospitable corner you could possibly find. But I mean, I totally, I think that's a great idea, and, you know, obviously I know the club will be looking for feedback on those sort of things. But yeah, from this point of view, it looked fantastic. Now, obviously, we now have to talk about the result. And I don't know whether you recorded the BT Sport coverage and watched it back when you got back, or this morning, whatever. I mean, obviously, I watched on BT Sport. And the emphasis from them was that Bristol had picked an interesting squad, leaving players like John Afoa, Callum Sheedy, Charles Pirtau on the bench, with Pat Lamb's rationale being that they were going to come on. You know, you always start good. You want to bring on your strong players to finish the game. The emphasis from the BT Sport guys were that you'd be 30 points down at half time, which I don't think any proper Saracens fan or rugby person would actually ever, I think Bristol are in a false position this year. You've had a bit of bad luck, I think, and you've not really stepped on from last season, which for any number of reasons, but you're a better side than where you are in the league, that's for certain. It's certainly, the other thing is when you're bringing back, Bristol brought back one player or two players from international duty. Saracens brought back a third of their sides, and another player coming back from long-term injury with only a week to gel them back in. That was always going to be a difficult ask for the team. And I think that was proven, particularly in the first half, where perhaps players who'd come back from international duty weren't quite at the races, weren't on the same wavelength as the other guys who'd been together for such a long period of time and had stepped up while they were away. But yeah, I think Bristol, you can be rightly proud of the performance you put in.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was, it's interesting you say that about, maybe that some of them are a bit ring rusty, because the way I look at it is like we were virtually playing an international side. So regardless of whether they were ring rusty or not, that was pretty impressive. And we clearly, I think the strategy was, if we could be close in the second half, we had our kind of our bomb squad of Randrandra and Sheedy and Pirtau to come on. But ironically, I don't think they were actually shown up in the first half in attacking prowess by some of the understudies. And I think we took you by surprise a little bit, likes of Antoine Frisch and Tiff Eden, who very much have been understudies this season, but have actually had a bit of a run in recent times and kind of played with a bit of no pressure, a bit of gay abandon almost. And but we also had to put a shift in the pack, and I think the likes of the Joyce Atwood axis was really quite important, and we had Dan Thomas in. I think our big problem in the first half, our front row was starting to rock a little bit, so I think it wasn't, and that did make a big difference when John Afoa came on, and later on Jan Thomas, who would be our first choice, to be honest, and obviously Sinclair was given a rest this week. So yeah, I was pretty surprised to be 20-all, and I was pretty disappointed it wasn't 2013 at half time, because game management has been an issue with us, and that comes with a young developing team, really. And with a minute to go, we box kicked it away, and you made that break and scored, and Daly scored in the corner. And we were just saying, me and Tony who were there, we're just saying, why we've done this before. Yeah. Just keep the ball a little bit longer. Well, or just to drill it into the corner, or it's just, so it's disappointing really to be 20-all in some ways. And we did think that the first score in the second half would be crucial. I do really think the turning point actually was the disallowed try, the knock on from Billy Vunipola. I think when we saw that go over, I thought, that's game gone now. I think we've done our best. I think you'll canter home, and got turned over. And I think we then gave us a bit of momentum back again. And obviously, we really fought like Trojans at the end and almost nicked it. So yeah, it was one of those classic games. It ebbed and flowed, didn't it? And that's, I think, what fans want, a bit of ebb. It's not much fun watching sometimes, but it's what rugby's all about.
I also think as well that, we are always loath to criticise referees, but I do think Christoph Ridley and his refereeing team did add some integral moments. The one that's probably going to annoy Bears fans more than anything else, it wasn't the Owen Farrell tackle, which we'll talk about in a minute, but the Billy Vunipola knock on, that certainly irks Alex Good, Andy Good and Lawrence Deladio on comms. They were not happy with it. I could see why he wasn't yellow carded, because it wasn't the hand; it was actually he's gone and the ball's brushed his arm. So I could see the rationale behind it. But if Billy Vunipola had been yellow carded at that point, I don't think any Saracens fan could have had any complaints whatsoever. And it wasn't long after that we got a turnover, or we got, and a box kick away, and Elliot Daly scored a beautiful try in the corner. It has to be said, that was a fabulous try in the corner. Bristol had switched off that last couple of minutes, I think. But yeah, there were a few decisions from Christoph Ridley that could have gone a different way, shall we say, had it been a different ref, whatever. I mean, swings and roundabouts, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm like you, really. I'm loath to criticise too much. I mean, we might say, we didn't get a decision there, but they got the decision right with the knock on, and that gave us that momentum back. And ultimately, if I was being brutal, we lost it because we popped a forward pass with like 30 seconds to go. So, I mean, I think it is just something for the wider. It's always, I mean, we love to debate it. I mean, it does seem that there does seem to be a bit of inconsistency about this. The knock on, the deliberate knock on. I mean, if a big hand is out flailing, its kind of intent is not really to catch the ball, even if it's instinctive, whether it brushes a millimetre, if it's deemed to have touched the hand in some form, it doesn't really matter if whether it was solid or not. And I didn't actually see it live. It was only, I was starting to get some WhatsApp messages through from friends watching at home who were apoplectic with rage about it, as you can imagine. So, I mean, it's difficult. I mean, we all know it's difficult. It is hard reffing a game when you're actually the one there. It's so hard to see everything. But I think the biggest issue I think we all have sometimes is we feel that maybe the assistant refs could get involved a little bit more, especially with offsides and especially little things like that, and help them out and not, but I'm not going to, every team can point to kind of times it's not gone their way, and I think you go down a bit of a rabbit hole by getting too upset about it. How many times do players knock it on? How many times do players get isolated and don't release? Everyone makes mistakes, and you can point to those things as turning points in a game. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, the one big one that we do need to talk about, though, is the return of Owen Farrell. From our point of view, or my point of view, it was interesting to see BT Sport asking whether Owen Farrell gets held up to different standards to other players. The big talking point is, should he have seen yellow, or as some people have suggested on social media, should he have been taken around the back of the Tottenham High Road and shot? Because that's the level of ridiculousness for that one tackle he put in. I think Christoph Ridley described it perfectly well when he gave his rationale for just having a penalty. It was a left arm was swinging, the right arm was passive. It was shoulder to shoulder. There was no head, no recklessness. Penalty against him. Owen had a bit of a whinge about it, but I personally think that was the right decision. And then, if you actually look at it, where everybody's giving him quite a lot of criticism. And I don't know how you feel about this, Pete, but if you were to look at his performance in isolation, I thought one poor tackle he got penalised for correctly. He made 10 or 12 really good tackles. There were two lovely passes he put in that set up two of the Saracens' tries. His kicking from hands and from tee was flawless, as you'd expect it to be. And he led the defensive line and captains, I think, like he hadn't been away for 4 months. So I didn't think he had a bad performance.
No, I agree. I mean, I think we were hoping he might be a bit ring rusty, to be honest. And you talked about some of the internationals coming back, maybe not gelling, but I mean, I thought he was the Faz of old in every way, clearly. But going to your, I don't know. I mean, my instinct was that looked like a yellow card. I'm bound to say that. I just think in the sense that it just didn't look like a tackle. It just looked like a kind of bully in the school ground, just going in, and I wasn't aware that was allowed. And I just think, I probably could be shut down because I probably haven't got the law book in front of me. But I mean, he did smack. I mean, I remember watching it live. We all went, ooh. because it was Piers O'Connor, I think, and live it did. You just think, God, that was a bit of that just looked bad, like even live with that split second. Again, he got away with it. If he did get away with it, he got away with it. It's I think it's ironic, and you may be completely correct that the reasoning from the ref is right. It's just the kind of context of it being him, and he's done it before, and he hasn't got away with it before, and it's kind of these fine margins of detail. So, it was quite funny on the highlights I did when Christoph Ridley was kind of saying, I'm could you try harder to wrap your hands next time? And even then, Farrell can't resist kind of having a little bit of a kind of discussion about it. I was like, mate, just walk away. You got away with one here, potentially. Don't debate it. He's actually given you this huge olive branch and even coaching you how to do it as well next time. But, that's who he is, and he's a winner. So, there you go. He went off for an HIA, didn't he? Yeah. Afterwards, based on that. So I suppose on one way we got rid of him at least, but someone else had to come on and take his place.
What was your views, Matt, on the gaming and the result and the performance?
It's a weird one for me. I do agree with both of you in a way on the Owen Farrell situation, if I can agree with both of you, because it was just one of those that is somewhere in the middle, and everyone's going to have a different opinion of it. I think ultimately probably got it right. But yeah, the game in general, I think it's an odd one. I think almost both sets of fans go away disappointed. Obviously Bristol, because quite frankly should have won, and Saracens because we didn't really perform to how we'd want to perform in what was a showpiece game for us. I think we did have a few rusty players. That's probably, it's been a long time since I said Jamie George has had a bad game. But I think he had a bad game. I think he was a little bit upset about, I think, the second try that Bristol scored, from what looked like a line out that was overthrown by about 4 miles. It did sort of look on a replay that maybe there was a little bit of interference in the line out, but something and nothing. That
Barrow Itoje got away with against Wales, didn't he? So obviously,
absolutely,
Dave Atwood had been watching the Barrow Itoje line out disruption video, I think, on that one. But that's. But
the thing that stood out for we kind of talked about it earlier was, I was way up in the gods in my seat behind the post, so I had a good sort of view of how teams were setting up in defence. And the tries that Bristol scored were entirely down to the fact that Harry Randall was getting that ball out rapidly, with a lot of good work from the forwards as well. It's not just him throwing the ball out, it's excellent clear outs at each ruck and making sure that ball is available. But we weren't setting defence. It was a scramble most of the time, which is why we were flying in with tackles, because that was the intensity we needed to get the ball back. And those tries did come from Randall getting the ball out quickly and finding pockets of space. And I thought Tiff Eden had a fantastic game as well. I was very surprised that he actually got taken off. So yeah, looks a very, very handy player, especially if you say he's someone that's been an understudy for the day. But yeah, I think Bristol were fully deserving of victory there, and I wouldn't have complained had they won. Obviously, from 2 foot of space, forward pass.
Well, I think Joe Joyce will be waking up in cold sweats for the next couple of weeks, so certainly until the next game. And I think, that was something they brought up on commentary again. Max Maidens made a mistake for a Bears try, but then rectified it almost immediately by scoring his own try. And that's what good players do. And I'm sure Joe Joyce will be taking some ribbing tomorrow morning when he's back in training with the lads. I'm sure that there will be a kangaroo court of some description for him. But, first of all, you've got to be in that position. And I think the fact that 80 minutes into a game, your big lumbering second row, which is what Joe Joyce is. He's not an athletic second row like Maro Itoje. He's an engine. He's a diesel engine, isn't he? But he got there. He showed some pace. And there's not a lot of players that deep into a game who could do that. So, yeah. Last question for you, Pete, before we let you go and everything. And us as Saracens, we know what we want to achieve. We're looking at a home semi-final. That's really what we need for going forward. Leicester have done us a big favour today with Chris Ashton scoring 2 tries to go level with Tom Van Dal as well, which is impressive for for the splash. But what do you want to see from Bristol for the rest of the season? Well, where do you need to be?
Well, I think our stated goal at the start of the season was to get into the final, having nearly got in, but and then that was downgraded to top 4. That was then downgraded to top 6, and it's like a kind of the Office of Budget Responsibility forecasting, like the inflation rate. It just kept changing every week. But we're in 10th, and there's a bit of a gap between us and I think it's Wasps above us. I'm not sure, but I think realistically we now realise that annoyingly qualification for the Champions Cup may have gone, and that's a bit of a shame, because that's the place we want to be. I mean, it's and actually, if you think if we'd won yesterday, we would have got 5 points. That one pass would have been a bonus point win, and we had that game against Bath, which you might have seen a couple of weekends ago, where we were we lost it right at the end and we were down to 14. I mean, you add that's kind of 7 points because it has gone. So I think the reality is, and based a little bit on what Pat Lam was saying after the game, is I think we're now going to have a crack at Europe. We've got Sale home and away, not the most glamorous round of 16 opponents, but if we can get through that, we've got a semi-final, we've got a quarter-final away in Paris against either Stade Francais or Racing. Let's say Stade Francais beat Racing. We've beaten Stade Francais, so we could, suddenly we're into kind of mugging territory where you just never know. You might win a semi. I mean, it's what Harlequins did last year, and you might suddenly get there. And of course, when you look at our squad, and if we did have everybody fit, and you look at and if we do click, because our biggest problem this season is inconsistency in clicking, to be honest, then who knows? I mean, that is, I imagine that's what Pat Lamb's is gonna aim for. We've got Saints away next Saturday, which doesn't sound like an easy game, but I think we might use that as a bit of a dress rehearsal for the 2 games against Sale that follow, and I'd expect to see Piatau back. Obviously, Randrandra, we've got Luke Morahan, who's another thoroughbred that we have that hasn't played for ages. He's kind of on the way back from injury. Maybe even Andy Oren, who's been out with a hamstring, will be back, and he's quite important to us when we kind of change the game plan a little bit. So as a antidote to Harry Randall. So yeah, sorry, that was a long waffly question. It's like, we're going to win the Champions Cup. That's what we're going to do.
Well, look, what we could say is, Pete, thank you for joining us. Genuinely, it's always a pleasure to talk to people from Bristol, to play Bristol, home or away. We wish you the very best going forward. To say you're not going to be challenging us at the end of the season come Twickenham finals. We're not going to be challenging you in Champions League in Europe. So let's hope for a successful end for both of our clubs at the end of the season in one of those trophies.
Appreciate it.
No worries. Well, we'll say thank you very much for joining us. Best of luck for the rest of the season, and I'm sure next season we'll have a chat again at some point when perhaps we're challenging for the Premiership final at the end of the season. Never know, but
definitely. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Not a problem at all. Thank you very much, Pete.
This is the Fezcast.
I really enjoyed that. I mean, it was great chat with Don Morris, and also obviously with Pete from Bristol. Do you enjoy that podcast there, Matt?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's we were talking about it off air with Pete. We both of us have now done a little bit on Bears Beyond the Gate. It's good to have Pete come on our show, and it adds a little extra dynamic, doesn't it, when you hear from someone who's got a foot in a different camp rather than us just talking with our Saracens tinted glasses on all the time. So yeah, I really enjoy doing things like that.
Excellent. And yeah, the Don Morris interview, really lovely of Dom to give us his time on Friday lunchtime. Obviously disappointed that he wasn't in the squad, but yeah, I asked a question about Munster, which he gave a pretty good answer to. Like, well, we don't know where that came from. and obviously then, chatting about all the different parts of the aspects of the game and everything, really good fun. So yeah, fantastic. Right. Our next podcast is going out. When's it going out? This one, it will be going out on the 12th of April, which will be after, hopefully, COVID willing, I'll have run the Brighton Marathon. So we'll have to work around how we record that one. May well be on the Monday with my feet up in ice or whatever. But yeah, looking forward to that. But yeah, and we've got a couple of irons in fires with a couple of guests, just waiting for them to confirm back. I'm not going to say too much more than that, but international guests. That's all I'm going to say. And we'll leave that up to you. If you follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, you might spotted some movement in that direction. But yeah, looking forward to that. Anything else from you, Matt?
Nah, I'm all good. I've got to go out and do Mother's Day duties. So yeah, card and flowers from the garage.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah, you get them free now with half a litre of fuel, don't you?
Well, yeah, it's cost enough, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, 57 quid or whatever a litre. Oh, never mind. Anyway, thanks a lot, Matt. All the best, and thank you everybody for listening in to this edition of the Fezcast. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time. Until then, all the best and ta-ra.
Cheers, everyone.
You're listening to the Fezcast.